Good morning everyone, this is David. We are off on a road trip to Snowdonia in North Wales. It's going to be a 3-day trip. It's about 170 miles to get there. And we're staying right up in the mountains in an eco guest house, which should prove quite interesting. Now the guest house has a Tesla destination charger, it has a Rolex 7-pin charger as well as a 5-pin charger. Now chargers are generally a bit thin on the ground around there, so if you're travelling around and you need the range, you've got to have a base with a charger in it. When we get there, we'll be visiting all the usual sites, the Italianate village at Portmeirion, going on to Porthmadog, and then further down the coast to Pwllheli and Abersoch. We'll also be visiting the more classical sort of slate mining type areas like Llanberis and Bethgelert and other things like that. Finally ending up on day 3 in mid-Wales at Machynlleth, where the Centre for Alternative Technology, which I haven't visited for decades and decades. And when I was first there, it was a bunch of hippies with a solar panel and a water heater. Now I'm very pleased to say 30, 40 years further on, that's all become mainstream. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how they've moved with the times, if at all. We will finally then strike off back home via Shrewsbury and get in sometime early evening on the Wednesday. This is a splendid little resort called Llanfairfechan, and it's just off the A55 south of Llandudno. And as you can see, it's got a very nice promenade, and if you walk far enough to the left, you can get to a nature reserve. This is proving quite popular today, as you can see, it's extremely sunny. You can just see there the tip of Anglesey as we're just approaching the Menai Straits. Here we are at the Bryn El Tide Eco Guest House run by John and Celia Whitehead. That's the white building on the left just coming into view. The noise, by the way, is not an old steam engine, it is simply the outflow from one of the smaller hydroelectric schemes, and the lake coming up on the left hand side is the bottom lake from the much larger hydroelectric scheme, and over the day you can see this rise and fall as it's pumped up to the higher level above. John has a Tesla destination charger and another Type 2 charger next door. We arrive with only about 50 miles on the clock, so I've hooked the Tesla up and we'll give it a full 90% charge. Just coming round to the front of John and Celia's guest house, and John has some passive solar on the white building on the left hand side and 2 kilowatts of solar PV above the wood store. He also has a biomass boiler, so he's totally carbon neutral. Welcome to Portmeirion, the Italianate village designed by the famous architect Clough Williams Ellis in the 1920s. If you're after a coastal cottage with artistic finesse, you've come to the right place. Set on a cliff top overlooking the estuary, the brightly painted buildings offer spectacular views of the sea and the village and the hotel below, which we'll shortly be looking at. We've come up the hill from the hotel to the village itself, and all the buildings that you see are self-catering apartments. Now, apart from the odd bit of Welsh slate, I think you would agree with me that you could actually be on the Amalfi coast and looking up at one of the pretty villages like Positano, which is probably what Clough Williams-Ellis was actually looking to create, and I think he's done a very good job. No, this isn't the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, but it's the best we've got around here. This is Tanni station on the narrow gauge railway, and it's just outside John and Celia's guest house, so it's really convenient for catching the train either to Blaenau or down to Porthmadog. Well, here we are on Tanni station on the Festiniog railway. It's a 2-foot gauge line opened in the 1830s primarily to carry slate from the quarries of Blaenau Festiniog to the newly built port of Porthmadog. Now, if you look at the train, this particular one, you see that it's unique in being double fronted. So you've got 2 boilers, 4 sets of driving wheels, and these particular trains, Prince and Palmerston, are about 150 years old and they're still working. Now, of course, the slate industry has long since declined, so these marvellous engines have been converted to carry passengers from Porthmadog up to Blaenau Festiniog, and they do an excellent job of it too. We're back at Tanni station waiting for the train to pull out to Porthmadog, and you'll get a good view of the double boiler section. But more interestingly than that, behind the engine itself there is a freshly converted Pullman coach restored to the cost of about £250,000. It's a sort of observation car, which obviously will be a lot better if it were at the back of the train, but we'll get a view of it as the engine passes by. I wish we'd known about this, because we'd have paid the extra to have the view if we were going down to Porthmadog.
CAT welcomes thousands of visitors of all ages each year, and it runs courses and has a growing number of members keen to get more involved. At the top, turn left and go straight to the introductory video. We hope you enjoy your visit, and remember, if you have any questions, pop along to the information desk where they will be happy to help.
The Centre for Alternative Technology was the brainchild of Mr. Morgan Grenfell, a local businessman, and it opened in the 1970s. They are still primarily concerned with alternative energy, but they have now moved into the sustainable living area as well. And in 2010, they opened a very large educational building that offers short residential courses, postgraduate courses, and the like. And the original idea of founding it was to wean us off fossil fuels, and that's even more relevant today than it was in the 1970s. It is well worth a visit, so allow 2 or 3 hours to wander around and see what you think about it.